All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a term that, it didn't just show up, it exploded onto the software scene. It created this whole professional crisis, and then, just as quickly, it changed. This is the rise, the fall, and, well, the rebirth of vibe coding.
So, where did this all come from? Well, believe it or not, it all kicked off with this one tweet. Right here, February 2025. The guy who sent it? AI researcher Andrej Karpathy. And with just a few words, he basically captured this huge emerging shift in how developers felt about their jobs, and it just lit a match under this whole conversation about what it even means to code with AI.
Okay, so what did he actually mean by vibe coding? The idea, the pure version of it, was kind of revolutionary. Think about it like this. Code wasn't something you painstakingly wrote line by line anymore. Nope, it was more like a steerable draft. You'd have a conversation with an AI, kind of nudging it, guiding it, until your idea just appeared. You were all about the what, the big picture, and you let the AI handle the how.
And just like that, boom, a vibe was born. Seriously, it felt like it happened overnight. And in those early days, man, it felt like a superpower. It really did. The promise was so huge, so incredible, that the hype, it wasn't just hype, it was real.
And just look at how fast this whole thing took off. The speed is just wild. We're talking about going from one single tweet to a full-blown cultural phenomenon in, less than a year? Think about that. When Merriam-Webster adds it as slang, that's one thing. But when Collins Dictionary names it the literal word of the year, yeah, you know something massive is going on.
And it wasn't just talk, the results were absolutely stunning. Get this. A 20-year-old student builds this super advanced AI simulation engine, Mirofish. How long did it take? Just 10 days. 10 days. The project goes viral, he posts a simple demo, and bam, he lands a $4.1 million investment. That's just insane.
And this wasn't some fluke either. We saw it again. Another developer, this time 23, vibe codes a whole mobile app, payout, in 2 weeks. And it's not some toy project. It quickly scales up to 20 grand a month in revenue. It really felt like the walls were coming down. Like the barrier to building a real profitable business was just vanishing.
Okay, but this is where the story pivots. Hard. All that early hype, it was about speed, creativity, the lone developer building something amazing over a weekend. But then the question became, what happens when you take that playful, kind of loosey-goosey approach and drop it into a serious, high-stakes corporate world? Where there are millions of dollars and millions of users on the line. Well, the first thing that happened is the term itself started to change. It began to drift. Vibe coding wasn't just about fun, playful prototypes anymore. It turned into this catch-all phrase for any kind of AI coding. And that brought a lot of baggage with it. A lot of negative feelings, really. Because suddenly the stakes were so much higher. And here's the real kicker, the part that nobody saw coming at first. Developers found themselves in this Faustian bargain. Sure, you're writing less code yourself, which sounds great, right? But the trade-off was you were now responsible for reviewing and fixing just mountains of AI-generated, slop. And that's not just more work. It's way more stressful. They even came up with a name for it, the review tax. And when you look at the data, it's crystal clear. Senior devs, the experienced ones, were actually shipping the most AI code. But here's the crazy part. Almost a third of them said that all the time they spent editing and checking that code, it completely wiped out any time they saved. So they weren't actually working faster. They were just swimming in more complexity. And all of this led to what everyone started calling the vibe coding hangover. That morning after feeling when the party's over and you're left with the mess. This was the moment the real-world, painful consequences started to hit home. And the hard data? Well, you just couldn't argue with it. One major study found that code generated by an AI had 1.7 times more bugs and major issues than code written by a person. That's a lot. But then it gets worse. Way more alarming, actually. That same research, it showed that AI-assisted code had almost 3 times more security flaws. So now, we're not just talking about buggy, messy code. We're talking about creating real, measurable, and frankly, dangerous risk.
And these weren't just stats in a report. This stuff was happening in the real world. Big companies started feeling the pain. At AWS, an internal AI coding tool was part of a chain of events that led to a 13-hour outage. A crypto platform, Moonwell, had an incident that caused it to issue $1.8 million in bad debt. Yikes. When you see names like that in the headlines, the risk suddenly becomes very, very real for everybody.
So, did everyone just ditch AI and go back to the old way? Not at all. This is the cool part. The industry didn't give up. It learned. It grew up. It started moving away from that loose, casual vibe and towards something much more disciplined, something professional.
And who better to mark this change than the guy who started it all? Exactly 1 year after his first tweet, Andrej Karpathy basically came back and said, "Okay, time's up." He pointed out that, yeah, using AI to code is now standard practice, but, and this is the key, it's now done with professional oversight and real scrutiny. The original freewheeling, just go with the vibe idea, it was officially over. Passé.
So, what took its place? This new idea called agentic engineering. And the whole philosophy shifted. It wasn't about a casual chat anymore. It was about a structured, professional process. The human developer wasn't just a prompter. No, their role got upgraded. Now they were an architect, an overseer who was in charge of managing a whole team of specialized AI agents, all working within very strict rules.
And the new workflow is built around this really smart, disciplined loop. Plan, execute, verify. It's simple, right? First, the human engineer plans everything. They set the goals, the rules, the quality checks. Then, the AI agents execute the plan. They write the code, run the tests, all that stuff. And then, and this is the most important part, the human expert comes back in to verify everything. It puts human expertise and judgment right back in the driver's seat.
So when you put them side by side, the evolution is just so clear. Vibe coding was about giving in to the vibes. Agentic engineering is about orchestrating with rigor. We went from a process of prompt and hope to a solid cycle of plan, execute, verify. And the developer, their job evolved from just being a prompter to being a high-level architect, responsible for building real, professional, production-ready systems. I mean, this whole story is just a massive shift in a ridiculously short amount of time. We've seen the role of the developer literally evolve from someone who writes code to someone who orchestrates intelligent systems. It's a huge change, and it really just leaves you with one big, fascinating question to chew on. What's next? If that was the last evolution, what's the next one?